Good evening and welcome to the July 21st, 2021 meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Advisory Committee. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And with that, we will ask Mrs. Vasquez if you could please call the roll for tonight's meeting.
Commissioner Ferris.
Here.
Commissioner Hayek. Commissioner Hayek.
Here.
Commissioner Pletcher.
Here.
And Chair Lemo.
Here.
Vice Chair Emel is absent.
Thank you very much. And could we now move to public comments, please?
Sure. This is the time and place for public comments. Registration for public comments was available until the start of the meeting for those wishing to address the Traffic Commission regarding items on the agenda or on a subject within the city's jurisdiction. Speakers for specific agenda items shall be called and heard during that specific item. All remarks should be addressed to the Traffic Commission as a whole, and all documents for the commission and the official record should be presented to the recording secretary prior to the meeting. Speakers are requested to state their name and community of residence for the record. Under state law, public comment matters may not be considered by the Traffic Commission unless listed on the agenda, but may be referred to the city engineer for administrative follow-up. 0 individuals have requested to speak and no written comments were received. Also, please silence all cell phones during the meeting and please remember to mute your microphones when you are not speaking.
Thank you very much. And with no speakers and public comments, we'll move to item 5 in our agenda, which are the summary notes of our June 16th, 2021 meeting. And if you would move to those now. And those are really just for our review. Is that correct? Or do we need to approve those?
I think those are just for review only.
Excellent.
No need to take action.
That's correct. Okay. So item number 5 is there in a draft form for you all to see. That will allow us to move to number 6, which are engineers' reports. And we'll start off and give the floor to Mr. Mashiko.
Okay, thank you, Chair Lemo.
I hate to interrupt you. I did. I became a little too familiar here and didn't read that before I call on Engineer Jim Mashiko to present our first report. I'd like to explain the flow of the meeting for the benefit of those watching us tonight and residents who registered to speak under this meeting's 2 engineering reports requiring action by the commission. Each of these reports will be followed by a discussion between the traffic commissioners and staff. When the discussion is complete, if we have speakers, staff will share a list of registered speakers on the screen and start calling the speakers one by one. And now I'd like to turn the floor over to you, Mr. Mashiko, for our first report, item 6A.
Okay, thank you, Chair Lemo. We have this PowerPoint presentation on screen. This item is a continuation of the June 16th discussion to consider traffic concerns on Bridgegate Street, west of Westlake Boulevard. And to refresh everyone's memories, here's a location map that shows the 3rd mile segment of Bridgegate Street, shown in blue, west of Westlake Boulevard. Potrero Road is to the south and Triumphal Canyon Road is to the north. Bridgegate is a collector street that has a 35-mile-per-hour speed limit. And last October, during the pandemic, we measured the daily traffic volume to be just above 1,500 vehicles per day with a prevailing speed of 37 miles an hour. To the west of Belcroft Avenue, Bridgegate Street narrows and becomes a standard residential street fronted by single-unit homes with a posted speed limit of 25 miles an hour. The primary traffic concerns that have been voiced by residents focus on speed, pedestrian safety, and driving behavior. And to resolve the traffic concerns, staff was asked to consider implementation of a number of traffic control measures, including a speed limit reduction, speed humps, always stop sign control, and marked pedestrian crosswalks. All of these measures are not eligible for implementation, with explanations provided in the June staff report. If the commission wishes to discuss these reasons again, as we did in June, we can address them at the conclusion of this presentation. Thus, road striping was proposed as an alternative measure to calm traffic. At the June 16th meeting, the commission considered public input on the road striping proposal. The overwhelming majority who provided public input did not support implementation of road striping. 49 individuals expressed opposition, while 2 supported it. The commission voted on 2 separate motions to implement road striping. Both motions failed. After further discussion, the commission asked that this item be brought back in July with additional information such as studies or data on the use of road striping effectiveness to slow vehicle speeds, and an option to evaluate the matter again later this fall. The new information and recommendation has been included in the July staff report, including updated collision statistics. For 2 weeks after the June 16th meeting, staff continued to receive public input on the road striping proposal. The number of citizens expressing opposition to road striping increased to 57 compared to 49 at the time of the June meeting. And the number of citizens who expressed support for road striping reduced from 2 to 1. In addition, staff received a petition circulated by the neighborhood residents, which contained 106 signatures expressing opposition to the implementation of road striping and no parking restrictions to Bridgegate Street. In preparation of tonight's meeting, staff repeated the June meeting notification process. Approximately 320 meeting notifications were mailed to the neighborhood highlighted in yellow on this map. The meeting notification indicated that there are 2 options under consideration, with option 1 being the staff recommendation. Staff has received feedback from 13 citizens supporting option number 1. 11 copies of that feedback have been shared with the commission prior to this meeting. 2 additional feedback just before the meeting. We have received no emails supporting option number 2. As I just mentioned, the staff report identifies 2 options to resolve Bridgegate Street traffic concerns. Option 1 is listed here, which are traditional education and enforcement measures to get voluntary compliance by neighborhood residents to improve driver behavior. These measures consist of speed limit enforcement, use of a portable radar feedback sign, assistance of the homeowners association to get the message out to slow down, traffic monitoring in the fall of this year, and return if and when traffic engineering countermeasures become warranted. Option 2 is shown here on this slide, which is a road striping option that incorporates centerline striping, bike lanes, and parking lanes. The commission voted 2 for and 2 against on this option last June, and it garnered a handful of favorable comments from the public during discussion. So with that, the staff recommendation is in the report. The recommendation takes into account the public input received, traffic data, collision history, and the ability to monitor and bring the item back to the commission for further action should it become warranted. This concludes a staff report or a presentation. I will be pleased to answer any questions of the commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Masico. And now that we've had that report, do we have any members of our commission that have any questions of staff? If you would do so, we're going to do this as easy as possible. Please raise your hand and be recognized if you have any questions of staff in regards to this report. Yes, sir, Drew. And don't forget to unmute yourself, please.
Thank you. Thank you,
And
Mr.
I'm sorry,
Chair.
not Drew, but Commissioner Fletcher. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. thank city staff and Mr. Mashiko for the presentation. I had just a quick follow-up regarding option one and questions more for Sergeant Patterson. Can you just walk me through when we look at police enforcement and, you know, the radar feedback sign, and can you just walk me through what that looks like and what can be expected in the neighborhood should the commission decide to go with option one in terms of enforcement?
Sure. So the speed limit's 35. So typically our first thing we do is put out the radar feedback signs to give the education of the public to realize how fast they're going. I have been out there several different days of the week, several different times of the day in the last couple of weeks. The highest speed I got was 41 miles an hour. It was one car. The majority of people are doing below the speed limit, quite honestly, between 33 and 35. However, we would maintain having a radar speed trailer out there for the education. If the speed is still persistent above what would be safe, and the difference between a posted speed limit and a safe speed, which is what you have to cite for, just because somebody's doing 36 in a 35-mile-an-hour zone does not mean they get a ticket. There is a giant leeway, if you will, that has to be argued in court. It has to be defendable in court. So typically we give people at least 10 miles an hour over. So you're talking at least 40 miles an hour, 40, 45 miles an hour before we issue a citation there. We've been there before. I haven't seen anybody that was deserving of a speed citation. Several people on the cell phones, but not speeding. So that's what kind of our enforcement would be. It would be periodical to go there, spend a few moments. If there's enough traffic that justifies us staying there, then we would stay there. If not, we have plenty of other work to do.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to, for those listening tonight and just for my own understanding, get a better idea of what that looks like. Can I ask, just get some clarification from staff just on that last little bulleted point. It says staff to monitor Bridgegate street traffic speed volume measurements in the fall of 2021. I'm just to take that to mean we'll just do a measurement later this year, see where we're at, and then kind of continuously reassess. Is that kind of my takeaway there on that?
Yes, Commissioner, that is correct. We would repeat the measurements that we conducted in October 2020, and just see, you know, with school back in session in the fall, I'm sure that's going to definitely make a difference in the volume. Usually speed doesn't increase, it generally stays the same, but normally when we resurvey streets again, the volume definitely will change whether school is in or not in. So that's what we can do.
Okay, perfect. And just as I just wanted to pull that up. Sorry, I'm scrolling through the staff report here. I just again want to thank staff for the notice that went out to the neighborhood, notifying the neighborhood, presenting. I thought it was a great, well-written notice, very clear on what the options are, very clear indication of where city staff is making their recommendation. So I just always appreciate staff going out to the neighborhood and making them aware. So much appreciated. Thank you for that. And with that, I'll turn it over back to the chair. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Plesser. Do we have any other questions of staff from the commissioners? Yes, sir, Commissioner Ferris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One question, I just wanted to get a sense from staff, and this is based upon the previous report, which has been included in our staff report, and some of the discussion from the previous hearing was that there is also a concern with respect to a preferred versus residents desired pedestrian path that crosses Bridgegate at a particular intersection. And I remember we were saying, you know, there's actually sidewalks on the north side, and there's a signalized intersection at Westlake, and that's preferred to be there. Is it appropriate, given the recommendation we have of the public outreach campaign, to also include discussion with the neighborhood about the preferred pedestrian paths so that they understand some of the safety concerns and what we are or are not able to provide, so that they can kind of accommodate that as part of what they're hearing from public outreach? Is that something that can be included?
Yeah, I guess you mean maybe sharing some of the requirements that we look for if we're going to install marked crosswalks. And then also point out that there is the signalized intersection nearby. So if people have ideas of crossing the street, although it's less convenient, using the signalized intersection at Westlake at Bridgegate is probably the preferred location, because it does have the push buttons to indicate or bring up the indication when it's time to walk and not to walk. So yeah, we can include that information and share it with the HOAs.
Yeah, that, because in reading the staff report and the recommendation, is sort of like the staff report, the staff's recommendation is to kind of do public outreach and education. And that was one element that I remember, which was a concern brought to the commission's attention, which if we can address that in the public outreach, that could be helpful. Then we could see if there's any other measures based upon that as needed. But thank you. I just wanted to get that before we start hearing testimony and make recommendations.
Thanks. Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions of staff? Hearing none, then I would ask that we could please have our first speaker.
Sure. 4 individuals have requested to speak on this item. Speakers are allowed 3 minutes. And for the record, 13 written statements have been submitted, all support of staff recommendation number 1. So I'm going to go ahead and get the first speaker going.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so the first speaker is Michelle Hagel.
It does not appear that Ms. Hagel is currently on the line on hold, ready to speak.
Okay, so we'll go to the next one. Michael Alexander.
And that appears to be the case for that speaker as well.
Okay. Robin Stidham.
Yes, we see Robin and we will admit her.
Okay, hello.
Yes.
Oh, hello. Thank you for having me speak, commissioners, Mr. Mashiko.
Excuse me, could you please state your name and city of residence, please?
Sure, my name is Robin Stidham. I'm in Westlake Village in Foxmore Hills.
Thank you.
I actually am right on Bridgegate. We're on Bucksmore Court, and we need to take Bridgegate out. First, I just wanted to thank you for the time. I was part of the community that went door to door and got 106 signatures in our petition. We asked not to have any striping, not to have any painted parking spaces, and no parking signs. I got to meet a lot of people in our community, and our community is over 60 years old, and there's only been one other community that was built off of Bridgegate in those 60 years. It is 1/3 of a mile, like Mr. Mashiko said, and it's not commercial, and it's not a commercial community. So we hate the idea of our street, which is a residential area looking like a commercial street. Really appreciate all the due diligence that everyone did, the research, and most importantly, giving us a chance to speak, because we are the shareholders in our community that would have to deal with anything that you all decide. We really just would like to say, and if you did read the petition, it just actually said, please leave Bridgegate alone. We would appreciate that you vote on option 1 to give our community public education. And we really appreciate that the staff took the time to create a new option 1. Thank you so much for giving me the time to speak.
Thank you. Our next speaker.
Next speaker is Laurel Bloom, but she is not in attendance yet.
Okay, has Ms. Hagel or Mr. Alexander tapped in yet?
No, it does not appear.
All right, then we will close our comments on this with the public. And there were no formal questions from the speaker. Does the staff have any comments on what we heard from the one speaker who actually attended.
There are no additional comments.
All right, so we will ask, are there any, particularly after hearing the speaker, are there any further questions of staff? Normally, we will have a motion put forth before we have commission discussion. So do we have anyone who would like to offer a motion at this time? Any of our commissioners? All right, then I will offer a motion to accept and approve staff's recommendation. And we'll look for a second to that motion.
Happy to second that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so thank you very much, Commissioner Pletcher. We have a motion and a second. We will now open it up for commission discussion, being that we do not have any further questions for staff.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir, Commissioner Ferris.
would you be willing to include as part of your motion information regarding to preferred pedestrian traffic access in the area consistent with the safety measures present and how that can help? That was not included in the staff report, but it would be nice to include that in the public outreach.
Absolutely. So if we just need to do one thing, that my motion will be amended for that. Commissioner Pletcher, do you second that consideration as well?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Motion stands with that a friendly amendment. Other commissioner comments? Okay, hearing no other commissioner comments, as the maker of the motion, I do have just a very brief comment. First of all, I really appreciate the amount of work that staff has gone through, not only to take in information and suggestions, but also to come up with at least step one of a plan. With that being said, I certainly appreciate public input as well. I probably nothing better about the size of our town than being able to get people's input. And I think that's very, very good. I do want to explain one thing from my point of view. I think that public input needs to be paid attention to absolutely positively in a city council meeting. There's no doubt in my mind that that is where public input is the single most important place for public input. I do believe, however, that at a planning commission meeting and at a traffic commission meeting, while public input is important for us to be aware of, we don't have the luxury of, first of all, we don't have the luxury of being elected, but we have to take first and foremost safety as our number one benchmark. I'm convinced by the work of staff and the I wouldn't know if it would be called advice, but strong input and wisdom of Sergeant Patterson that this solution is a good solution at this point in time. I did pay very, very close attention to public input at the last meeting and was shocked to find that the majority of the public input that wanted nothing done, each one in their comments mentioned that speed was a serious problem in their area. However, I've learned over the years, over the last 12 years on this commission, that when I see someone who may be going 34 miles an hour and it feels like they're going 55, that I can trust our police department's input as to what the real speed might be. And so for that reason, put forth this motion with the amendment from Commissioner Ferris. And now we'd like to call for a vote, please.
Okay. Commissioner Ferris,
Yes.
Commissioner Hayek,
Yes.
Commissioner Pletcher,
Yes.
Chair Lemo,
Yes,
motion carries 4-0.
thank you very much. Next, we have our second engineer's report of the night, and Senior Engineer Mashiko will be presenting it. So the floor is yours, Mr.
Okay, thank you, Chair Lemo. I think we have our PowerPoint up on screen now. This is an action item on the 2022 citywide pavement program. Staff has identified 3 road segments which have excess road capacity at this time, where we have an opportunity to implement potential lane reductions after the streets are resurfaced. A public outreach will play a key role in whether the community agrees with the concepts to restripe the road segments to better balance the needs of all modes of travel, including vehicles, bikes, and pedestrians. The decision to implement the proposed lane reductions hinges on the feedback received from the public. The staff report contains a public outreach plan to be conducted next month to obtain public input for each of the 3 road segments. And tonight we're asking the commission to provide their input on the proposed lane reduction concepts and the public outreach plan for the 3 streets. Here's a project map of the 2022 pavement program. The city is responsible for maintaining 380 miles of roadway. And next year, the city is planning to resurface approximately 67 miles of that roadway. And the affected areas are shown in color on this map. There's cost savings to the city is a key factor in considering potential restriping for street segments during the repavement process, since new striping arrangements can be implemented at little or no additional cost. The next opportunity to stripe a roadway differently would be another 15 to 20 years in the future. If we didn't plan now and determine the road striping should be changed in a few years, there is a cost to grind off paint, and visually the road surface can be unsightly with scar marks from paint grinding. Therefore, the most efficient way to install new striping is during the repavement surfacing process, and the city has been reaping the benefits of this cost savings practice for over 20 years. For the 2022 pavement project, the 3 street segments that have been identified as candidates for potential restriping are listed here. They include Hillcrest Drive, Reno Road, and Via Las Brisas. The first segment is Hillcrest Drive between Lynn Road to Moore Park Road. This is a 1.25 mile segment that is 6 lanes with an average daily traffic volume of 19,000 vehicles per day. And this is towards the east end, towards the west end. The east end is about 5,000 vehicles less. The speed limit here is 45 miles an hour. Here's a proposal where the number 3 travel lane is converted into a bike lane with a buffer zone between the vehicle and bike lane. The reasons for the change include excess road capacity. The class 2 bike lane is identified on this segment in the city's active transportation plan. There would be greater separation between vehicles from pedestrians on the sidewalk. The bike lane would encourage alternate forms of travel, including scooters, and also addresses citywide concerns over speeding and the desire for more bike lanes. If this option does not receive public support, it would be restriped to existing conditions. Here's the 2nd Street, Reno Road between Orchard Road to Maurice Drive. This 3/4 mile segment is 4 lanes with an average daily traffic volume of 11,000 vehicles per day. Speed limit is 45 miles an hour. Here's the option 1 proposal for Reno Road, where the number 2 travel lane is converted to a bike lane with a buffer zone between the vehicle and bike lane. And the reasons for change here are the same reasons as Hillcrest Drive, with the fact that Reno Road south of Maurice Drive already operates with 1 lane in each direction. And it operates quite well given the low daily traffic usage. And if here's option 2, if option 1 does not receive public support, it would be restriped to existing conditions with Sharrow markings added to the number 2 travel lane. The Sharrow markings serve as visual reminders to drivers that the travel lane is to be shared with cyclists. And then the 3rd street segment is Via Las Brisas, shown here between Orchard Road to Lynn Road. It's a 1.5 mile segment that's 4 lanes, and it already has bike lanes. The average daily traffic is 8,000 vehicles per day, and the speed limit is 45 miles an hour. For Via Las Brisas, we have developed 2 option 1s, which we call option 1A and option 1B. Option 1A is shown here, where we take the number 2 travel lane and convert it to a wide buffer zone between the vehicle and existing bike lane. The reasons for change here are the same reasons as Hillcrest Drive and Reno Road. Plus, with the lane reduction, pedestrians should have an easier time crossing the street under this configuration, as it would only contend with 2 through lanes of traffic instead of 4. And here's option 1B, which is a slight variation of 1A. In this configuration, the travel lane is moved away from the center median, and a buffer zone is created on both sides of the travel lane, with a skinnier buffer lane between the travel and bike lane compared to option 1A. And then here is option 2. If option 1A or 1B does not receive public support, we would basically narrow each of the existing travel lanes to 11 feet in width. Currently, they're 12 feet wide, and create a skinny buffer lane between the auto and bike lanes. Public outreach efforts to get public input on all roads restriping proposals include 8 platforms listed here. They include social media, the city website, mailings, press releases, SurveyMonkey, and focus Zoom meetings on each of the proposals. And upon completion of the community outreach, final recommendations will be communicated to our community development department to be incorporated into the circulation element of the general plan. Final road striping plans will be prepared for approval by our city council this coming winter. And so with that, the recommendation is in the staff report. This concludes the presentation, and I'll be happy to entertain any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mashiko. Appreciate it. Good report. Let's first see if commissioners have any questions of staff. Commissioner Ferris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a few questions, so hopefully I can get them through. They'll help me just to kind of understand the nature of the report. So the first thing I just want to clarify, we are going to be recommending what the options might be for public outreach. Is that what that we're entertaining here? We're not approving any of these plans. We're not deciding on it. We're saying, yep, these look like good elements to get public outreach and opinion on. Is that correct, Mr. Mashiko?
Yeah, I maybe I'll step in there.
Or Mr. Hadari, sorry.
I think it's twofold. Yeah, one is to collect input on even the concepts themselves for these 3 locations. As Jim mentioned, as we do these paving programs, we make other minor adjustments here and there, but these are the adjustments that were a little bit larger that are being considered. So just the general feedback to these kind of makes sense from a traffic and transportation point of view. And then secondly, yes, on that proposed outreach plan that we have, if there's anything else that we can utilize or leverage, or any other ideas that may be there to communicate with the public about these.
Okay, great. Thank you. I had one question, Mr. Mashiko. You had mentioned the aspect of the 15-year cycle, and that if we don't pursue that it's another 15 years to get around to that. Is that because there will be resurfacing on these roads as scheduled? We're trying to figure out the best way to restripe them while they're during this resurfacing period. Is that a fair reason of how to think about this?
Yeah, and I can maybe pick that one up too. The correct, as we have the opportunity here because they are included as tentative streets in next spring, summer, and fall's biannual pavement program. So we have a blank slate when we repave them, and when we restripe it back, whether we move the lines around, it's essentially a freebie to do the striping differently, as opposed to if we did it mid-cycle. If we decide 5 years from now on one of the newly paved streets, wow, let's reconfigure this, that would be an expense, and the visual wouldn't look as conformant as well. So
that makes complete sense. I wanted to get kind of a sense that that's the rationale of why we're thinking about it this time. So that's great. Can I get a sense of, and these all kind of get to the impacts of making these changes, of sort of narrowing down the roadsides. So we're looking at these particular road segments. the traffic, the average daily traffic currently given in the report related to what the capacity is. What's the time period over which that average was done? Is there a kind of a 2020 COVID-19 element that deflates that number a little bit?
No, all the traffic volumes that are in the report, they were taken well before COVID-19.
Great.
Probably about 3 to 4 years ago, when our counts probably the highest levels that we've ever had in the city. So yeah, these are definitely conservative numbers. And also on some of the road segments, I provided the highest number. Some of the values are less, but I always just, worst case, it's better to provide the highest number.
So they're the highest average daily.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. Along those lines, what are the primary drivers as to why the resultant observed daily traffic on these particular road segments are significantly lower than what those roads were built for? I know that, lots of developments, and you go through as best you can the traffic studies to try and estimate these things. And obviously there are things that change, but do we have a sense of, for some of these, why, like, for example, why Via Las Brisas, why in the Dos Vientos area, why is that so significantly lower than what that area might be built for? It's, I think, built roughly to what was originally planned, but it'd be good to get an understanding of that.
Yeah, I think I'll add in something right now. On Dos Vientos, that area really, it's somewhat isolated. There's really, compared to the central part of Thousand Oaks, Dos Vientos more or less has just, it's serving the residents out in that area, especially Via Las Brisas. If there's any through traffic, it's carried by Lynn Road, since that road is 45 miles an hour. Traffic can travel fairly quickly, and it's a direct path to the freeway. So if there's any through traffic, yeah, they're probably not using Via Las Brisas. It probably makes smarter sense just to stay on Lynn Road and avoid going through and meandering through Dos Vientos to try to get to the 101 freeway.
I also would like to weigh in with a little bit of an opinion here as well. Dos Vientos, like much of Thousand Oaks, is aging as well. The one thing I notice is that there are a lot less people with cars, mainly, I will say, mainly teens, than there were when my kids were growing up. It's just a little older populace, and of course, when those kids get into their 30s and 40s, they're not moving up here. They're moving in other areas of the city. So that could have something to do with it as well, I would think.
Demographic changes.
That's just demographic changes, which we're seeing all over the place. But yeah, I think that would contribute a little bit.
Right, another piece I think I would add is I think a lot of these collector roads were generally laid out as 2 lanes in each direction. That's just kind of was the norm, I think, as they were getting constructed. But
again, like I said, I'm just trying to. It is the observed daily traffic seems to be significantly less than what the capacity is, which makes complete sense to potentially narrow it down, give you some slower speeds on those roads, give you more room for bikes. I just was interested to understand, do we have a sense of why that might have been? Number of things is just, we just built 4-lane roads, that's the way it was, and there might be demographic changes.
So one other piece is, if I may,
the
capacity, the maximum capacity of the roadway implies that the roadway is completely full of vehicles.
Sure.
It's not a Thousand Oaks type situation.
It probably is true, though. I think for each of these road segments, there's not a ton of traffic going on there, which gives us the sense that yes, narrowing it down probably will not hurt the traffic flow there. My last question kind of relates to that, which is, do any of these have any aspects as if they would relate to any needed changes to the circulation element? Are these primary areas that we would need to have a consideration if they change that? I don't know how that might relate, but these seem to be some larger thoroughfares. Maybe not Via Las Brisas, but maybe some of the other ones on Hillcrest.
Yes, that is a consideration, and as the general plan is underway right now, whatever the final determination is, if it's determined to make any modification to any of these roadways,
Mhm.
those changes would be folded into the general plan update in the fall of this year.
Okay.
Right.
You're right. And this is a public outreach thing anyway. We're at the start of the process. So thank you. Those were my questions. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Commissioner Ferris. Any other commission questions of staff? Commissioner Hayek.
How do we look at that transition when we're doing just a segment of the road? So if we're coming, from 4 lanes, and if it's going to go down to 2 or 3 or whatever it is, like how does the transition go from the roadway that connects to it, or the roadway that it spills into when the traffic pattern is different?
Okay, yeah, I think, well, that level of detail we haven't looked at yet, but generally we're going to be looking at these transitions right from the segment links. Like for example, Via Las Brisas would be from Borchard all the way down to Lynn. So we would, I think in that situation, it probably would not be a major change from what you have there. I think at the intersection we keep the capacity, but we gradually taper down, 1 lane, or if you're approaching the intersection, you're going from a single lane. Okay, then we gradually taper back to 2 lanes. I'm not sure if there's, we've had problems doing this before where we had road or lane reductions. We generally maintain intersection capacity sort of at the endpoints.
And we have a couple of examples of this. Avenida de las Arboles west of the 23, and also Hillcrest Drive in that same region near the 23, where we've done the similar type of measure, and we have the funneling of traffic, to do it not right in the intersection, but taper that as we pass through the intersection.
Yeah, we taper it generally, probably maybe depending on the speed, about 200 feet after the intersection. It takes, for you to taper down from 2 lanes to 1, and then to get to the intersection, if you're going from 1 to 2, then similar taper, widening back up from 1 to 2.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commission questions? Commissioner Pletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to turn the attention. Thank you for the presentation again, Mr. Mashiko, and for answering these key questions. Turning to the staff report on page 6, your public outreach plan. I just want to offer some comments and thoughts on that. First, I think the city does a fantastic job already on communication via social media. But just as somebody who uses social media in my own private business and some other things, I just would highly recommend making sure to pepper it multiple times on these channels to get people involved to sign up to these, Zoom public meetings and get their public input. But in addition, specifically speaking more to the Hillcrest location, I think it would be worth, and I'm sure you're going to do this, but talking directly to the mall, talking directly to the fire department right there, getting specific, feedback from some of those key businesses and key partners along that corridor. I think would be just key, would be great just to make sure they have a very clear voice and that they're coming to the table with their thoughts and opinions and options. I really didn't have much more. I mean, this is the first step in a long process. From my own just observation, I like specifically naming Hillcrest because I see a lot of pedestrians walking on that far side where there is no sidewalk. And you see these cars go by and you just really wonder why they're doing what they're doing. So I think you've identified 3 key locations that I think could use this conversation. So I want to thank you for that. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. The only comment I have is, well, I think it's important to get plenty of community input, as our staff always does. In these situations, I'd just like to suggest that you might weight some of that input towards bicyclists, because from a safety and a convenience standpoint, they're going to have the stronger level of input on what you end up deciding as the best path. May I ask, do we have any speakers on this agenda item?
No individuals have requested to speak and no written statements have been submitted.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Vasquez. With that then, is there any further commission discussion? Commissioner Hayek.
Just a question. So this goes out for input, and does it come back to the commission, or is it just go directly then to the council or integrated into the paving plan next time around? So is this the last time we see it, is my question?
Yeah, the project will be going to council this fall to authorize to bid in order to be on track to award the project in early 2022 and start construction. So the intent is that tonight would be the venue for to collect your feedback.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, now we will be voting then. We'll entertain a motion on the recommendation, which is that we've reviewed the engineering report. We received public input, of which there's none, and provide any recommendations in regards to the public outreach for the potential modification of striping on these streets in conjunction with the upcoming 2022 pavement program. And this will go to, first it'll go to the community input will be measured by staff and then presented to council. Looking for that motion from the commission. Commissioner Hayek.
I'll make the motion to accept the recommendation as stated.
Thank you. Looking for a second, please. I'll second the motion so we can move forward. Any discussion on the motion made? Hearing none.
Just, sorry, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Fletcher.
Just real quick, I again want to come back to that public outreach plan and just really recommend, I don't think we need to amend the motion or anything, but just working with the direct partners along Hillcrest just to make sure they provide feedback and get input, I think is just key for our business community. I want to make sure that they're aware and have a chance to voice their opinion and can show up and provide feedback. I don't think it's worth amending the motion, but I just want to make it clear, for what it's worth on commissioner recommendations. I just think that's incredibly important. I'm going to support obviously the motion, but I wanted to reiterate that one more time.
Thank you. And with that, Mrs. Vasquez, would you call for a vote?
Sure. Commissioner Ferris,
Yes.
Commissioner Hayek,
Yes.
Commissioner Pletcher,
Yes.
Chair Lemo.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. The Traffic Commission makes recommendations to the City Council, and interested parties may attend the City Council meeting and speak either for or against the recommendation of the Traffic Commission. Any person wishing to appeal a decision of the Traffic Commission shall file a written appeal and pay an appeal fee with the City Clerk Department within 14 calendar days of this decision. The matter will be referred to the City Council at the earliest reasonable and available date. The appeal fee will be refunded only if the City Council overturns the Traffic Commission's decision. An appeal form is available from the recording secretary.
Thank you very much. And with that, we will move on to agenda item 6C, which is our bicycle advisory team meeting minutes from their June 17th, 2021 meeting. This is an information item only and should be in everyone's, I'm certain that it was in everyone's packet. Next, we will go to item 7, which is the status of prior Traffic Commission recommendations, of which there are none to report on tonight, as well as agenda item 8, commission referrals from the June 16th, 2021 meeting, of which there were none. And you can take a quick look for your information at item 9, which is a work program and commission schedule, which is attached. And then we would go to item number 10, traffic commission comments and discussion. And if a commissioner wishes to make a comment or have a particular discussion, if you would please signify your intent by raising your hand and we will call on you. Commissioner Pletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to point out to staff, speaking of social media and the importance of social media, I saw the TO Transit Twitter today mentioned a little sneak peek of their new EV buses coming this fall. I was very excited to see that, and just wanted to take a second to point that out. And it's always exciting to see us improve on and upgrade our transportation around town. So I mean, great work, and that shows the importance of just getting all that information out there. And I'm incredibly supportive and excited. So just want to point that out to my fellow commissioners.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments? All right, hearing none, we will move on to a reminder for everyone that the committee, commission, and board meetings for the month of August are dark, as is City Council. And so our next Traffic and Transportation Advisory Commission meeting will be scheduled for September 15th, 2021. And even though we will mark our calendars, staff does a great job of keeping us up to speed and giving us the calendar announcements as well. With that, the Traffic and Transportation Commission is adjourned until 6 p.m. on September 15th, 2021. Now, we are tentatively saying that we will be in the board meeting of the Civic Arts Plaza on the 3rd floor, or in a virtual meeting by Zoom, with the recurrence of some concerns regarding public meetings and COVID. We will let everybody on the commission know, as well as the public, what decisions are made. So what we do not know yet is whether we will have a Zoom meeting, a commission meeting live in the boardroom, or perhaps a hybrid. I will tell you that hybrids for public meetings just don't work that well, but our staff is pretty amazing, so we'll follow what their recommendation is. And with that, I wish you all a pleasant evening, and we are adjourned.
Good evening. Thank you.